Siege and fall of Baghdad. Hulagu met with his advisors in the Iranian city of Hamadan and issued his decision to go to war. The armies set out from Hamadan to Iraq. The main military division advanced to the siege of Baghdad from the east, and the Tatar leader Katbak Noyan besieged Baghdad from the south, and the Tatar leader Beju Noyan headed to the siege of Baghdad from the north, and the Dieter from the west. Thus, Baghdad has been surrounded on all four sides. Baghdad was one of the most impregnable cities in the world, as it was the capital of the caliphate for more than 500 years. But these fortresses and walls needed men, and men were few at that time. The Abbasid Caliph al-Mustasim lacked the ability to manage matters in crises. He lacked the courage to take the timely decision of war. Corruption and grievances spread in Baghdad, and people were preoccupied with amusement, trade, and competition for pleasures, instead of being preoccupied with military preparation and training to confront the Mongols. For nearly 40 years, the people of Baghdad have been hearing about the heinous massacres taking place against their Muslim brothers in Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, Chechnya, and others, and they did not move. The Caliph was helpless and defeated, and he was not a competent leader to lead the great Islamic Ummah. He did not accomplish what he had to do, did not step down, and left the leadership of the nation to other qualified people. He had to pay the price, and his people, who did not seek to change this situation, had to pay the price with him. Peoples that do not revolt except for their own interests or for their food do not have the right to raise their heads. The head of the Baghdad government was the malicious Shiite Muhammad al-Din al-Kami, who weakened the Iraqi army and reduced its numbers from 100,000 knights to only 10,000. This was the situation in Baghdad. Outside Baghdad, the Mughal armies were eager to attack Baghdad. Before the start of the war, and as usual with invaders, there had to be an excuse to start the war. Hulagu thought of finding an excuse to start the war. Then he decided to make a difficult request, which the Abbasid Caliph rejected, so this refusal would be an excuse for declaring war on Baghdad. Hulagu asked the Abbasid Caliph to send in the army of Baghdad to help him attack the fortresses of the Ismaili assassins, sect in western Iran. The Caliph refused this request, fearing that Baghdad would be left without protection. This refusal was Hulagu's pretext for declaring war. This matter of finding the pretext is a recurring matter in history and to this day. The pretext changes according to the circumstances, but the goal is the same. In 1258, Hulagu appeared with his armies of 200,000 knights to besiege Baghdad. The Mongol Tatar army began laying siege tools and catapults around Baghdad. The Abbasid Caliph al-Mu'tasim was terrified, and he held a meeting with his ministers, led by Muhammad al-Din al-Kami, whose opinion was to pacify the Tatars and to establish peaceful negotiations with them. But two men from among the ministers, Mujahid al-Din Aibak and Suleiman Shah, and advised the Caliph of the necessity of fighting and defending the city. Al-Mu'tasim Billah finally agreed with the opinion of the two ministers, and a weak group, headed by Mujahid al-Din Aibak, came out to meet Hulagu's army, so he met with them in the Anbar region. But the Mongols were able to defeat the Baghdad army. Minister Mujahid al-Din Aibak managed to escape with some of his soldiers and return to Baghdad. Hulagu sent a message to the Caliph al-Mu'tasim, asking him to open the gates of Baghdad and hand over ministers and army commanders who wanted to resist the Mongols and defend Baghdad in return for giving him safety. Al-Musta'sim agreed to hand over the wanted persons to Hulagu. Hulagu took them and killed them all. Hulagu was not satisfied with that, but he asked for the caliph to come with his sons to him. Al-Musta'sim refused to leave. The Mongols began to bombard Baghdad with firestone shells. The bombardment continued for several days until they were able to demolish one of the walls of Baghdad. During the bombing and throwing arrows, an arrow entered the Baghdad palace. Al-Musta'sim grabbed the arrow and found in it a message in which he wrote, "If God wants to implement his judgment and destiny, minds will disappear from those with minds." Corresponding to February 10, 1258, Caliph Al-Musta'sim left and had to meet Hulagu. Al-Musta'sim arrived with his associates at Hulagu. The Mongols killed them all. The Mongol armies entered Baghdad and plundered its treasures. The Mongols began a mass liquidation process for the people of Baghdad, killing more than 1 million men, women, and children from the people of Baghdad. Then the Mongols went to the Great Library of Baghdad, took out millions of books from it and burned them, and threw them into the Tigris River, and the color of the river's water became black from the ink of books. The death toll in Baghdad increased, so Hulagu issued an order to stop the killing for fear of disease outbreaks due to the large number of corpses. Those who remained hidden from the people of Baghdad came out of the wells and hideouts, and an arduous process began to bury the dead. But the epidemic spread and infected many of those who survived. The epidemic led to the death of more people. It was a great catastrophe like no other in history.